Tonight, once again, the octagon beckons. The UFC is back. The speed, the power, the passion, the pain. UFC 6. Only no holds barred in MMA tournament in the world where striker meets grappler in what has become the white knuckle event in true bare knuckle competition. Tonight, 14 of the toughest fighters ever assembled will meet in the octagon, including UFC veteran Oleg Taktarov from Russia and the Canadian fighter Dave Benatillo, and plus the super fight champion of Dan Severn and Ken Shamrock. Both men, this or that, etc., 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 etc. The stage is set. The fighters are on. Let's get it on! UFC 6, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Mr. GLOAT podcast, ladies and gentlemen. We are here live in UFC 6. Ken Shamrock versus Severn, or as we would call it, Clash of the Titans. And ladies and gentlemen, what a crazy start to start off the intro with crazy moments. Looking at clips that have been happening for the last year and a half right now, or 2 years or so on, depending on who you ask. UFC 6, ladies and gentlemen, the Mr. GLOAT podcast. Competition is here, and I love it. I love it. I love it. It's so dang good. It's amazing to see these fighters. And technically, guys, let's get on the competition, guys. Before we talk about what we're about to see in the event, ladies and gentlemen, this will be a long podcast, so keep that in mind. But before we get on with our world championships here and finally crown the champion for Super Fight, we might as well talk about what's been happening in the WWF at the time. Now, guys, I don't look up Dave Meltzer or any other articles or other stuff about the stuff that's been going on, just like Deadlock Podcast. They always talk about the reviews or this or that, what's been going on at the time. But I might as well talk about it as for UFC because, guys, I don't review UFC stuff as much, but yet again, it is where it is. So what's been going on in the world of, only God knows what's been going on. Well, technically, guys, we've had a lot of crazy moments happening, ladies and gentlemen. As before, during the time, guys, 1995 was a time when they had shows like In Your House. And after the King of the Ring of 1995 came to an end in June around the time, 1 month before the event of UFC, ever since we had, we had Diesel and Bam Bam Bigelow defeating out Tatanka and Psycho Sid in their main event match. And after Bret the Hitman Hart, WWE champion at the time, defeated Jerry the King Lawler in a Kiss My Foot match. Okay, take that for what you will. And with character Mabel, because, guys, this was around the time where Mabel, after they did a quarterfinals tournament at the time, after having multiple fighters from the Roadie defeating Bob Holly and Savio Vega defeating Yokozuna, which is hilarious, with Mr. Fuji and Jim Cornette training with Yokozuna, which in reality, after Razor Ramon was also with Savio Vega at the time, won by countout to be in the tournament. And after Shawn Michaels and Kama, Charles Wright, the Godfather at the time, Kama, that ended in a 15-minute time limit draw, so no one entered in the tournament because of that. So Mabel would get out a round bye because of that. But after those matches ended, we already know the famous moment where Mabel kind of injured The Undertaker and almost destroyed his career during the time, which I'm sure some people know about how destructive it was. And then before you know it, Mabel got a round bye and Savio Vega defeated the Roadie. And, well, Mabel got his win by amazing win, and well, can't say much about that show, guys. So, yeah, technically, WWE at the time was different. But, ladies and gentlemen, around the time, guys, Hulk Hogan, as of 1995, what was Hulk Hogan doing around July of 1995? 95. Now, guys, that was like a few weeks before UFC happened, so I don't know much about other events happening. That was in June of 95 when that show took place during the King of the Ring. But what was happening around the time where Hulk Hogan was in the championship match? Well, Hulk Hogan was still in the champion since July 17th of 1994 when the Bash the Beach tournament he won against Ric Flair. And he would hold on to that title for so much until Halloween Havoc in the next few months, which was around the time where Kevin Sullivan found some demon-type characters that would later become the worst, scarier tag team group in the history of wrestling. And I'm surprised that they would be together for the next couple years until Bash the Beach 96, where Hogan turned heel and the Dungeon of Doom would come to an end. But I guess that the Dungeon of Doom's idea was to destroy Hulkamania. Hey, at least they succeeded. Just too bad the fans weren't into it. But still, guys, what was happening during that time? Well, in 1995, which was there about a few months before the month of September or so, or August, around the time where Monday Nitro would become a thing at the time. And Japan and the USA at the time in 1995 were pulling out their guns easily. After having a show in April, which would later be aired on August the 4th, known as the Collision in Korea, which we already know that moment about over 150 to 160,000 fans in the two-day event that were forced to be there in North Korea. And the whole crazy moment of Antonio Inoki and Ric Flair would be involved in the main event, which was the only thing the North Korean crowd would applaud to in the entire show. Except even though the dark side of the ring did have some interesting moments about it. But I think the start of the show of having how day one started out, considering how they had Chris Benoit at the time, because I think they had like I don't know. I think one of the first matches on the show, I think it was like Chris or something Benoit, I think. Because wait, where is it? Yeah, they had like Chris Benoit, known as Wild Pegasus, taking on Hiroshi Hayes in a 10-minute match. And the only thing entertaining to the crowd was them doing wild tricks, going through doing Irish cloak, like they're doing Irish whips, throw to the rope, and doing crazy tricks, and it got the crowd applauding the show. So that's kind of the only thing that applaud to the crowd. Every time you do a bump, the crowd does not cheer. And they said the story that Road Warrior Hawk at the time was threatening the crowd, saying, "Why are you mother effers here?" And at this moment, I don't know what to say about it. It was ridiculous. They even said when they left North Korea, Ric Flair finally got out of the plane and said, "Woo!" because he was so relieved to leave the country. But also, guys, on July the 16th, a couple weeks before that event took place airing, on July the 16th, 2 days after UFC 6 was released, Bash the Beach was already going to Huntington Beach, California to shoot out a tang line for the event so hot they had to put it on the beach, which they were also going to do an episode of Season 6, Episode 17 of Baywatch, which was titled Bash at the Beach. And I actually saw the episode, and it's pretty ridiculous for what they were doing, and I kind of liked it. I really did. And watching Brian Zane from Wrestling with Regret talking about the show and reviewing it a few years ago, back in 2019, and talking about how Renegade was still so bad in the show at the time with Paul Orndorff, and loving how Sting and Mang had a great United States title match. Kamala and Duggan, nothing much, but doing armpit claws or something. So, yeah, WWE and WCW still had a lot of flaws in their running. So you guys can say who was doing better, who was doing this. Yeah, WWF had Monday Night Raw at the time, and WCW were only a few months away from September before they did Nitro. And the whole thing about the horrible triangle tag match of the World Tag Team Champion, where Harlem Heat and of the Steve Ray and Booker T ended in a match where someone flipped Booker T over another wrestler and landed on him, and then the other team sat on him and they did a 1, 2, 3 count, but they gave it to Booker T because his body was on another person, while there's it really confused the idea, but the last two matches on the show, the lifeguard match with Savage defeating Flair, and then Hogan with Jimmy Hart helping out defeating Big Ben Van Vader in a steel cage match, those last two matches were really fun. I really loved it. And I love that Ric Flair yelled at Big Van Vader, "You lost the youth center!" I love it. I love it. And then Vader just threatened him only for friggin' Flair to climb over the top out of the cage in a matter of seconds, which is ridiculous. So, but still, I really love the show, even how bad the show was with the Diamond Dallas Page thing and such, and Dave Sullivan. And like the other matches in the mid part of it, I love it. I love it. And it's great. I even love that they had Colonel Robert Parker dressed up in his normal outfit while walking out in the beach. And I even love the moment when Paul Orndorff threw sand on Renegade because there was sand everywhere in the beach. So you might as well use sand as a weapon to slam it on someone's face. So I really did love Bash at the Beach. 95, it might have been one of my favorite shows to look at. And people do say that they had 9,500 attendants at the time watching it, but that's actually hard because there weren't a lot of seating arrangements at the time. And there was a lot of beach crowd people walking by from the ocean because they were near a beach ocean area at the time, which is the event was pretty interesting. So only God knows how many people even wanted to watch the show or not. But yeah. But like I said before, guys, it said right here that this was the last WCW pay-per-view to take place before Monday Night Wars in the era of September the 4th, 1995 to March 26th of 2001 during the WWF Monday Night Raw. The Raw is War with Monday Nitro, competing for ratings in a weekly Monday night time slot, which is now widely seen in retrospect as having been a golden age of pro wrestling. And looking back at it, it is interesting. And guys, if I can't even talk about the ECW championship, ECW in 1995 has already been growing out a lot better than it was, because ever since the end of 94 came to an end with so much catastrophic problems and having a wrestler at the time, like I think it was wrestler Shane Douglas at the time, actually threatened because he said he was tired of holding on to a belt that was not major, because ECW at the time was in Eastern Championship Wrestling until 94 came. So take that for what you will. But around the time, guys, Sandman has been champion ever since during the Hostel City Showdown in April of 94. He would hold on to the belt until October. And he would become champion around 95 and 96 a good amount of times until he lost it in December 7th, 1996 against Raven for his fourth title reign. And unfortunately, he would never win the title again until January the 7th, 2001 in a tables, ladders, chairs, and canes match, where he would only win the title for only a few moments when Rhino beat him up at that same pay-per-view and Guilty as Charged, which was the last minor shows until ECW died in April of 2001. So with all that information being said, guys, do we have anything to say about professional boxing at the time of 1995? Well, guys, this was only about 1 month before Mike Tyson would fight against Peter McNeely, so who knows what's going to happen. Hold on a second. Anyway, enough talking about all that stuff right now. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into UFC 6. So the show opens up with Bruce Beck announcing us this or that, comes out, tells us, amazing, we're here in Wyoming, Casper, Wyoming, the place where it was called Casper, a man that saved a fort when he died valiantly against a bunch of Native American Indians. Why do we have to know about this in 1888? Well, the reason for that is that's how Casper, Wyoming was built. With 2,700 fans in attendance, with 2,240,000 pay-per-view buy rates watching this, the Casper Event City and Center in Wyoming, the second largest city in the world, depending on who you ask in 1995, whether that's true or not, comes out as the event, and that's how we open it up. Bruce Beck gives us a little bit of information here or there, which would be too much to talk about. And then he gives us just a couple interesting this or that, just for the heck of it. Oh, yeah, and by the way, before we get to this show, the referee for the night is Big John McCarthy, but Michael Buffer has served as the guest ring announcer for the night. And even though for Ron Van Queef served as the UFC's first and only commissioner at the event, with Tamac officiated the preliminary bouts at UFC 6 as well as UFC 7. Tamac Gurriela is an American actor of a martial arts of a stuntman who has for his lead role for the Leroy Green in the 1985 martial arts film The Last Dragon. I'm actually curious because I looked up the movie and it was actually interesting. It's a better film than other films in today's world in 2025. Is it better than Adam Sandler's second film of Happy Gilmore 2 that just been released this recently? Well, who knows? Who knows? Who really knows what's the truth there? I don't know. But yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. And then as Bruce Beck gives us the real martial arts competition, calling it the deepest and the heaviest group ever assembled in UFC, which that might be true. With disciplines tonight, with Taekwondo, Jiu-Jitsu, we even have a few others from Kapu Kuayola, American Kempo, a bunch of wrestlers, and probably a kickboxer in the preliminaries, or alternative bouts. So let's start off with this. This is not a sparring match. This is not an exhibition. This is brutal hand-to-hand combat. So Bruce Beck is letting you guys on TV know this is serious. But before we get into it, let's talk to our Olympic gold medalist, 1984 Greco-Roman Wrestling Super Fight Division, Jeff Blacknick. And Jeff Blacknick, the first thing you see, the camera cuts to a guy with his right hand fiddling with a lock on the cage octagon. Why? So we see Jeff Blacknick fiddling with this friggin' lock, trying to screw it or lock it, and then he tells us, "Oh, hi guys, I'm just locking down one of these two deadbolts on the doors here because that's where the fighters will come into the octagon, and we want to make sure nothing bad happens, just like what happened to Keith Hackney in UFC 3, where a sumo fighter threw his body out of the octagon by slamming him through the door and knocking him out. So we want to make sure that doesn't happen. We hope." And someone just told me to do it just for the fun of it. So, why not? And then he gives us the area where fighters will do comeback. We have 32 feet across from each octagon area, surrounded with 5-foot highly reinforced, heavily padded chain link fence, and the surface thinly padded with the canvas skin with tightly pulled over the top. Footing is firm and fast. Lots of room to maneuver, but no place to hide. The fighters walk alone, they fight alone, and hopefully, as I open the door, unlock the deadbolt, or whatever the padlock you say, I open the door and I'll say, hopefully, they'll walk out on their own. I don't know what to say about that. And that's all they say. And then they cut to our great UFC Hall of Famer, Jim Brown. Guys, I love that Jim Brown is still here with us, but guys, it is hard for me to get used to these commentators because it seems like Jim Brown has more of a brains than anyone else. He said that he's never been to a beautiful country like this where the fight is already, there's a lot to the animosity going on. I want to see what's happening. And in football, and then Bruce Beck says, in football, you know your opponent, but in UFC, you only know your first. Which doesn't make no sense because football and UFC are different. And I love that Jim Brown points that out. He says, well, football is a team sport. I kind of outclass karma there, Bruce. Because this man-to-man, a man is in my preparation. If I'm bad enough, if I prepare myself, I'm going to win. Well, how tough is it mentally to win this event? Bruce Beck says as he's talking about UFC 6. And then, well, it's if everything is equal, each man has a lot of technique and the conditioning is mental attitude, and that's going to win all the time. Jim Brown said, is it size or is it substance? Bruce said, size is irrelevant. It is substance. Only when everything is equal will size come into it. But give me substance, which means attitude and technique, and I'll get that every day. That's all Jim Brown says. And technically, it seems like Jim Brown has more of an educated brain, because I'm not saying that Bruce Beck is bad. I love that Jeff Blatnick is turning into a little bit of a comedian type person, in my opinion, which is for him still trying to lock up the octagon cage door after he reopened it again, just letting us know we hope to God the fighters fight alone and they'll come out on their own 2 feet. He's still trying to fiddle with the friggin' locked door while these two guys are talking. I can't imagine that. And then we get to the grid for the main UFC draw, where Bruce Beck tells us that there were a couple sensational round matches. In the beginning, we have 2 tough guys that weigh over 665 pounds. And yes, that's a lot of beef. And they dislike each other. Who are they? Tank Abbott and John Matua. Guys, I have seen Tank Abbott in his returning fight back in 2003, where Tank Abbott, out of nowhere, came back in 2003 fighting against Frank Mir, and he lost in 46 seconds. And at that moment, I was like, yeah, his career is over. He has nothing left. And guess what? UFC 41 after that fight, he comes back to UFC 43 and UFC 45 and loses both fights by first round knockout. It's not even 3 minutes into those fights, and the rest of his career was. So I look back at his career. So I'm looking back at his career in 1995 to 1998, where he fought 15 times with a record of 8 wins and 7 losses, just to see how bad he was. But was he that bad? Well, we're going to have to see, because I've only seen one of his fights, and that was UFC 43 with Frank Mir. So I hope he gets something here. And then we have other guys like Cal Wershman and Paul Varens. We have Patrick Smith back in competition with Rudyard Moncayo, an American Kempo fighter from the country of Ecuador. And Oleg Takhtarov and Dave Bento, 2 guys, I don't know why we had to put them together in the quarterfinals, but they're there. They're there. Can't say much about that. But we also have our second fight unfolds. The Beast 7 versus Ken Shamrock. I love that they talk about the AAU and Greco-Roman for Severn, and then the Japanese Pancrase Association Shoe Fighting Champion of Shamrock. So I love that Bruce Beck also gives us the information of their championships. So that's actually one good thing. I'll give an A+ for Bruce Beck. So he's not that bad. He's not that bad. I still love Brian Kilmore a little bit just for the fun of it. But, yeah, again, everyone has their own moments. And then we get to the opener. Guys, I love that they cut to the octagon short. And then they tell us, they roll the footage back to show us the early fight footages in the alternate bouts. And the first one they show is John Sotin versus Jack Lofting. That ended in 2 minutes and 1 second by TKO submission to punches, which shows a guy with USA trunks and a guy with black shorts and white shirt. And they both go down to the canvas. But then they show another part where the guy with the white shirt beats up the American bathing suit guy with multiple punches by the 2 minute mark and taps out with a victory win. And I think he actually tried to headbutt the guy while he was down and then threw more punches. So, yeah, I can't say much about that. So, of course, John Sutton is the guy with the white shirt. And then they show other footage of Anthony Macias taking on He-Man Ali Gibson, which is actually a pretty fun name I like. Gibson is wearing black pants, and we also have Anthony Macias wearing black trunks with the back part of his underwear saying Mad Dog. And the match ended at 3 minutes and 6 seconds, where, same thing, TKO punches to the punch, submission and punches, where it showed He-Man trying to throw a punch at him, and while he was down, and then Anthony turns over and starts putting holds on him and then throws punches at him as well and ends the fight. He tried to grab his mouth at one point and then cuts him, grabbing on with his hands, and then Anthony throws a huge headbutt straight down to He-Man for some reason, and then he headbutts him again for a second time, which, and I don't know why, and I love the commentators are pointing out that he's using his head as a weapon for headbutting him, which is stupid enough for 1995. No wonder fans hated UFC back then. And you know what? I understand why I did not want to watch these old events after UFC 5 when I was 15 years old back in 2013 and 14 when I was watching this. Because this was bad. I did not like this. So it was bad. And before you know it, He-Man taps out as Anthony throws one more punch, and that's it. So Anthony and Joe Sotin win their fights prospectively, and all we know is whoever gets injured, they'll be taken over for the fight in the semifinals or maybe the finals. So who knows? Who knows? I love these onions. That's delicious. So by the way, guys, I want to show you guys a new drink I've been having here. So guys, this is an international drink called Ramune. It's Ramune, a strawberry flavored carbonated soft drink. I have 2 more of these in the refrigerator, one that's blue and one that's green. And I want to share each of these drinks for the fun of it. It is an international thing, but I'm not sponsoring this thing. I'm just saying what my thoughts are for the fun of it. It was imported by JFC International Inc. in Los Angeles, California, 90040. And the product was from Japan, so this is an international thing. Let me see. How to open. Okay, so peel off the seal. Lift off the cap, which... Yeah, where is the cap? Oh, here's the cap. Wait. Lift up the cap and push out the center. I don't know what this thing does. The center. Huh. And to release the opener. Huh. Okay. Don't know how this works. Place the opener onto, okay, number 2. Place the opener onto the top of the Ramune bottle and press down firmly with your palm. Oh, my hands are a little bit, okay. All right, number 3. This will open the bottle by dislodging the stopper. Keep pressing for 5 excuse me. Keep pressing for 5 seconds. And number 4, remove the opener from the bottle and discard. Huh. Wait, what happens if I use my thumb? Okay, place opener onto the top of the Ramune bottle. Okay, opener from the Ramune bottle. Trying to use it. What thing am I using here? Wait, how am I supposed to use this, man? What? Wait, place the opener onto the top of the Ramune bottle to press down firmly with your palm. Okay, so maybe let me just push my laptop here so it won't get wet. Is this how you do it? Guys, I'm really not good at this. Place on top of your moon bottle. Press firmly on your palm. Number 3, this will open the bottle by dislodging the stopper. Keep pressing for 5 seconds. Guys, I'm not really good with English. I'm not good at reading English. I'm only good at reading French. So I apologize. My English is terrible, so I'm not really good at English. So this is gonna stink. How do you open this thing? Guys, I've been trying to... Okay, wait. So wait, I have to do it like this? Okay, this is... Okay, I gotta look up the moon bottle. Guys, give me a second. All right, what's it called? Okay, Ramune bottle. I gotta get this one on. Yeah, Ramune soda. Is this what it is? Okay, here it is. Okay, how to open Ramune soda. Okay. Wait, let me... Okay, peel that off. Sorry, I had to mute out the video. Whoa. Oh. Wait, not your palm, your... The person used his thumb? Okay, I'm gonna get this wet, am I? Okay, this is... okay, this is... Okay. Okay. Give me a second. Oh, the clip part. Oh, okay. There's something right there, so I have to clip with that part, and I'll release it. Maybe I should cut out the parts here and the edges here. Oh, okay. Oh, this part does break. So this part break. Okay, so I got it this time. Okay, this is ridiculous. Oh my gosh. Come on. Come on, you Mr. Ball. Get your butt in there. Come on, I've worked out 2 days ago. My arms hurt like crap. Don't say my arm's not that strong. So you have to use your palm. Okay, my palm. Okay, guys, my palm is not going to work. All right. Oh my gosh. Guys, it's been 34 minutes since I did this podcast, so I'm going to have to maybe pause the video before I get to the rest. Oh my gosh. Oh my god. Oh no. Oh, shit. Got my finger stuck. Dude, you see that? Look at that ball right there. Look at that ball right there. You hear that? I don't know if you can't hear that, but wait. I don't know. Well, cheers. Oh my gosh. That is the worst pain. Geez, my thumb hurts like crap for that. Cheers. Hmm. 80 calories. That's good. I love that it doesn't have a lot of calories to it. I will say, though, guys, I will give this an interesting drink here. That's better. Considering the ball is kind of hilarious that the ball is blocking my drink every time I drink it, but at least it's small, but you know what? With 6.76 fluid ounces of 200 millimeters of that, pretty good. Just cap that off a little bit there. That's actually pretty good, guys. I really love that strawberry. That's actually pretty good. I'll give that bottle, guys, I'm going to give that flavor a 10 out of 10. I actually love that drink so much. I actually love Ramune. Huh. Even though I got my thumb hurting so badly. Ow. Almost got my finger stuck, which is ridiculous. I thought it was a goner that my finger was stuck. Oh my gosh. Look at that, how beautiful these onions are together. Just eat a few French fries with it. Now I need a towel. All right. All right, guys. Oh, crap. Those onions are hot. Oh. Sorry. Oh, I love that. That's actually delicious. I actually love that drink. All right, guys. Let's get down to business. Thank you for YouTuber Pro Tips 09 for letting us know how to open that thing, because that sure is a workout there. Man, that thumb hurts. Every time I squeeze it right here, it hurts so much for the pressure. So anyway, guys, we get down. After they show us the preliminary fights and such, which I think they had a different referee there. I don't know. We have the guy from Orange, California, the member of the LAPD, Big John McCarthy. I love it. I love it. I love that they have that. That's the best thing I've ever seen in my whole dang life. 10 years of martial artist. Love it. They have Dr. Richard Estrico. They also have our the New York Golden Gloves cutman, the one and only, technically the New York State Athletic Commissioner of the Golden Gloves of cutman Leon Tabbs in this 5th UFC after 30 years in the fight game, trainer of manager cutman of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, has worked on the likes of Bone Crusher Smith, Jerry the Bull, Martin, and Buster. Love it. And then they cut to our good old smiley friend, Ron Van Queef. I love it. I love that every time the camera cuts to him, he has a good smile on his heart, and he just has a smile. I love that he's having a good time. I'm sure guys, at this moment, maybe I'm sure he's not having a good time, but again, maybe he's still not getting used to Royce Gracie beating him, but I don't think it really mattered. So the laws of the octagon are simple. No biting or eye gouging. Referee can restart the fight. The bouts of competition are 20 minutes and a 30-minute time limit, with 20 minutes of time limit in the imposed for the quarterfinals and semifinals, while the finals and the championship match are 30 minutes. 5-minute overtime in the finals or super fight champion are allowed, just like with the Gracie and Shamrock fight in the Return of the Beast in the last UFC. And also, guys, we don't know how much money they're going to be for this. considering the lack of action, because I don't think a lot of fans were expecting how crazy the last shows were. Considering, again, guys, there is no judges. It is an 8-man tournament with the alternate fights, as were shown. No weight classes. Time limits are there. They have no rounds, no judges. So, and considering, guys, I don't know. They did say, considering that this was featured as the crowning for UFC 6 championship, but to be honest, guys, I think, I don't know, guys. The ways to win the fight were knockout submission, corner throws in the towel, or referee stoppages, or disqualifications are necessary in the fights. Also, guys, I did try to look it up, but we're going to get to that moment until we get to the end of the episode for the money-wise thing, but not yet. But yet again, guys, the first match on the show, ladies and gentlemen, is Tank Abbott versus the one and only John Matua. And we have, hey guys, I'm going to ignore the announcer and the talker because I'm already done with that stuff. We see Tank Abbott fighting outside, out in some front of some red stone areas of him out in the woods or near a parking lot or a park. He's into a couple experiences to definitely make the UFC champion. And considering he's a little bit of an overweight type dude, in Huntington Beach, California, the DL is here for the underground style in the world. He walks in as a big dude, but he's not really a tall guy. Just like in WCW, mind you. Also, Tank Abbott, his ideal for pit fighting is striker, boxer, wrestler, head hunter, and stand-up fighter. So that's interesting for them to show us that information. And then we cut right down to his opponent, John Matua, a guy that's fighting outside in a desert against someone, and the cameras are rolling it for some hilarious reason, which is kind of weird. They're out in the middle of a desert, like in New Mexico or something, and he's putting on a hold on some guy, beating the crap out of him outside with no one watching but a cameraman, which is ridiculous. And he goes, I'm Lua from San Pedro, California. I've been respected for all the fighters against me. I'll be testing the ancient Hawaiian art of bone breaking. Good luck with that, because I don't think it's going to work. I don't think so. I love that he walks out without a shirt on, or maybe he does have a shirt on. Ooh. But let's not get into that. Because technically he was wearing a black shirt with a red out letter here called KU. So interesting enough. The ring card girls are interesting. And then as we go to it, we go to our ring announcer, Michael Buffer. Man, Michael Buffer, look at his hair. It's crazy. Like 10 years ago when he announced Mike Tyson in his 4th professional fight, he was different 10 years ago. But man, that hairstyle is not the hair that I'm used to, but yeah. He comes out. We're into the fighting championships. 8 of the world's toughest fighters will walk into the octagon tonight. In the ending of the evening, only one shall emerge. Victorious. Plus later this evening, the Clash of the Titans, the super fight, the ultimate super fight featuring UFC 5 champion Dan Severn versus the world shoot fighting champion Penn Shamrock. I thought he said Penn. And tonight, there are no weight classes. There are no rounds. There are no time limits. And ladies and gentlemen, there are no rules. Let's get things started with the first of our quarterfinals. I love it. It seems like he had a green card and a pink card for some weird reason. I don't know what to say about that. And then we have Bare Knuckle with a record of 7 wins, undefeated. He's 30 years old. He weighs 265 pounds from Huntington Beach, California. Guys, how would we know that Tank Abbott is a bare knuckle fighter? I'm going to have to look that up in another episode of Shoutgun Saturday Night, another series that comes out every Saturday. It's a different series. It's not a podcast. It just features bare knuckle boxing, so keep that in mind. And then he comes out to the Hawaiian Brutal and the Bone Breaker, 29 years old, John Matua. So technically, they show us the tail of the tape that considering Matua is 400 pounds, Abbott's 280, he's 6 foot, but he doesn't look like he's 6 feet tall, while John is 6'2". Both guys are from California, different parts. He's from Garden Grove, and Abbott's from Huntington Beach. So I really can't say much about that. But yet again, guys, it is tough for me to understand the weigh-in. Like, that's ridiculous that that's how much they weigh. But, man, Tank Abbott doesn't look like he's 6 feet tall. I thought he was almost the same height as probably Brian Pillman Sr. So anyway, guys, the fights always started just like they start in UFC 2. John McCarthy walks towards. He waits for the two guys to say, are you ready? And let's get it on. We don't ask the two guys to come towards them to say, all right, this is what you do. Clean fight, this or that. Touch gloves and go back to your corner, and then I'll start. Nope, it's going to be the same thing, blah, blah. Fight starts out, guys. Both guys are leading off with their left foot. And Abbott throws out a right and brings him down. He pushes him, shoves him. John is trying to get back up, but no go there. He gets hit again. And as he goes down to his knees, Tank Abbott throws this Deontay Wilder fight way low, completely misses, only stumbles and goes right near to John, takes him. And then John looked like he was going to get him down in the knees, and he had it. But nope, no way it happened. They both wrestle out each other, push each other away. And then Tank Abbott sets out this heavy right punch right into his equilibrium and pushes, throws another right. John is trying to grab him, but no go there. Down goes John. They both hit the canvas, hits him, throws out heavy punches. John gets off of him at 20 seconds of the fight. Guys, I'll be honest, guys. This was actually the pride fighter of Tank Abbott that I was looking for. Because, guys, 2003 Tank Abbott was a lot out of himself than he was in 1995, so I really don't know what to say about that. It was kind of surprising how 20 seconds could go that much to a fighter. It's crazy. They actually show a little bit of a top cut on Tank Abbott's cheek there, or his forehead. They show the replay of how thoughts on John McCarthy and how Dr. Richard and Leon Tabbs are in the ring right now. They're telling them that the announcers are telling us this as they're showing us replays of Tank Abbott's celebration, this or that, with emergency units are on premises right now as we speak. Tank gets out of the ring, or the octagon. I always love calling it ring. And he walks out to the octagon. And then they tell them to come over here to this or that for some reason. They showed the match graphics saying that he won with 18 seconds in the match, when in reality it was 20 seconds. And then we have Jeff Blatnick coming into the commentary. And guys, I love that we finally have some commentary for the first time in the last couple UFCs after UFC 3. Jeff Blatnick comes by and tells Tank Abbott, Tank, that was a heck of a display of punching power. What was your game plan? And Tank goes, I've got a lot of sorts of things to do, Jeff. As you know, and Jeff says, as you know, you'll see, he was a 400-pounder. He didn't look like 400 pounds, but I'll take that for what you say. He did not look like 400 pounds. I thought he was 300. I thought John Mutua was 300. But yeah, he was a 400-pound fighter, and he seemed to take down 400-pound with you took him down with a chainsaw. Well, what do you want to know? He says. That's what I am. Can we expect that same kind of punishment to be on the rest of the fighters in the tournament? And Tank goes, that's only one dimension, Jeff. As you know, that's probably my weakest part of the dimension. I will go on. I'm a little bit winded right now because I'm excited. Other than that, cakewalk, baby. And then we goes, everybody 3 count, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. God, I hate that song. Well, we wish you the best of luck, Tank. Thanks, Jeff. And that's the end of the interview. So I will say, though, guys, I kind of like this match. I like that Tank Abbott is the force that we should know in 1995 more than he should have been, even when he was in WCW and how bad they put him over. So it was bad. This friggin' ball is giving me a hard time to open up. I can't. Every time I drink it like this, the juice and other stuff stops by. Oh, what am I doing? So anyway, guys, we cut back. They mostly Bruce Beck comes out, does this or that, talks a little bit of the talk. And then we go back to Jeff Blatnick again, talking to John McCarthy, saying, well, what did you see? How did you see it in the fight? And said, well, Abbott hit Matua with a really good hard shot that put Matua back, and he kept on trying to grab it, and every about third punch, he'd hit him a little bit more, and then he finally hit him in a real solid shot. He went back, and he was hurt, and he hit his head into the canvas, and that's just put him out. And, of course, mostly everything else. But I try to stop it as quick as with the rules that we have, I got to make sure that it's not when he goes down like a fighting referee, so the other fighter is going to step off. I've got to wait to make sure that he's out of the match to stop it. And that's as quick as I could get over there to get off of him. Abbott. And that's it. With the two sizes, and guys, is it difficult for you to be a referee to get the middle man off of them to stop them? Well, these guys, 400 pounds here, that's a lot of a person to try to get a move on stuff. They're getting bigger and stronger and meaner around here, and it's awfully hard for competition to enter and win. And certainly, I'm sure you're concerned their first priority definitely is the safety of these fighters, Jeff says. Oh, that's always my thing. I want to make sure that we come here to give their best and be able to walk out here, but just as normal as before when they go home. And there's a lot of speculation about the two big strikers throwing big roundhouse punches. There was concern over the safety that we hope and pray John Matua is okay. We wish you the best of luck, John. Thank you, Jeff. And that's how we get the ending podcast. And as he's done talking the interview and says, thanks, Jeff, and Jeff Blatnick leaves, they cut to John Matua holding an asphyxity bag and an oxygen right onto his mask as he's being helped out of the ring. And I was like, oh my gosh, this guy was in pain. I was actually a little bit worried, but I hope he was okay. I hope he was okay. Because if he wasn't, stinks to sinks. So anyway, guys, we get to the finish of the show. And at this moment, guys, the matches on this show, I'm going to get to it as quick as he can. The announcer actually pointed out it was 21 seconds of the fight that ended, so who knows who's telling the truth there. But, guys, the entire matches in the quarterfinals are under a minute, with some being barely 1 minute of a match, so I'm going to get through all of this as quick. So the next fight with Cal Worshman and Paul Varens, they showed Cal Worship outside with karate suit, stylist worship, the fight of 9 days ago. And one thing, he's an ex-Marine to use overcoming tough challenges. And saying that he's mostly a student back home in Folsom Taekwondo, his wife and kids, and he's here to win, and that's all that matters. I doubt it. He comes out with a good white suit, and now he's wearing blue trunks with black under. And then we get to know him about who he is. Many types of kicks, no submissions. Okay, no submissions. That's great. That's what taekwondos are. And then Paul Varens, he's a bare knuckle fighter. A bare knuckle fighter. Again, guys, I'm a little bit concerned about these fighters in the 20th century that are bare knuckle fighters. Undefeated bare knuckle matches. Paul Varens stands at 68, weighs 300 pounds. Anyone thinks he's a UFC title is going to have to go through him first. Guys, I don't know what to say. He goes that things have to be a little virtual for me. It's a real deal. Let's get it on. And that's it. So, and he's fighting outside in the desert as well. So good for him. But guys, I said this before and I'll say it again. How do we know the record and resume? Where are these bare knuckle fights taking place? Do we have video evidences of fights that took place in what venues? So I do question what bare knuckle boxing was back then, or fighting back in the old days were. I don't know. All we know is he's a trap fighter. He knows how to do knee, elbow shots, fighting close. He likes to charge his opponent with grappling. So that's all we have to know about Paul. I love these onions, man. They're delicious. I love these onions. These onions are so delicious. Anyway, guys, we do have a ring card girl with a beautiful bikini that was right behind Michael Buffer. And as he's announcing the ladies and gentlemen, we got the second quarterfinals. We have a couple ladies that were behind him looking at the ring card girl in her thong. Ridiculous. And then we go out and he points out for the Korean art of Taekwondo, this or that, and talks about both fighters, discipline. 25-year-old Paul Varens, 6'8", 32-year-old Worshman, 5'10", 230. And surprising, they're both from California. Sunvale for Varens and Folsom for Worshman. So there's a lot of guys from California in this show, which is kind of funny. So the fight starts out not much than you think. And when I say not much, like I said before, guys, the match starts out decent. Both guys throw kicks. The 6'8" dude comes over, throws up punches. He charges straight after the Taekwondo fighter of Cal. Cal is throwing punches. They're both throwing barrage of punches at each other, not even blocking each other. They both grab each other to the back part of their head. We get a knee kick from Cal, and then Paul goes for a knee for himself as well. We get a kick on for Cal. They're both grabbing each other. By the way, Cal doesn't have a shirt on. Paul does have a black shirt on, keeps it on since with black trunks, throws knees, this or that. And as his shirt's about to be taken off, or maybe we thought it was about to, they're going for punches after punches. Both of these guys are just hurting each other in the early part of the fight. They're both throwing left and right punches. And with only 47 seconds into the fight, they have a timer clock on the left side corner. And then the fight comes to an end at 55 seconds, where we get a huge elbow and then other punches thrown out by Paul. Paul throws an elbow, down goes Cal, and Paul grabs the 6'8" and takes him down, throws him down to the canvas on top of him just to stop the fight at 1 minute and 2 seconds. And Paul Williams is faced with his sheath because he has his mouth guard on. His nose is bleeding out of nowhere, walking because he has his mouthpiece on. The doctors come in, make sure Cal gets back up, and mostly with everything going on, we don't know much about Cal's injuries yet at the time. We have a bloody mouth for Paul Varens, wins it at 1 minute and 4 seconds, but on Wikipedia it said 1 minute and 2 seconds, so who knows who's telling the truth. And they show the replay of the first attack at the beginning part of the round. And they show a heavy right punch connected for Cal. And as said before, the punches were pretty surprisingly dangerous, considering that I will give credit for Cal. Cal did a good job trying to get something done. But that heavy elbow that Cal took him down to the canvas, and Paul went down to hit him again, and only to show Big John grab him and then wrestle him to the ground just to stop him with the fight. And then we see a towel being thrown in between both of them from Paul and the referee, with Cal on the other part of it. So yeah, and then Paul runs towards one of the camera crews, and then he headbutts his face to a cameraman like this, just to mess up the camera lens on the other side of the corner, which is funny. He just walks over going, like, John McCarthy comes in, wrestles him, he stops it, and then Paul Behrens gets back up and goes, he just messes off the camera lens on the national camera on the replay. It was awesome. I love it. So they take him. They say that he's going to be his next opponent. He'll take on Tank Abbott in the semifinals if he's not injured for much. And with the difficult part, the guy cleans his face up. Congratulations to the winner. We don't know if Cal's face was that broken as much, but it had to be. But the back part of his head did got hurt by that elbow punch. So, yeah. With considering he had a swollen area under the left part of his eye, but luckily, guys, Paul Behrens would continue the fight just for the heck of it. But yet again, guys, if we had two guys that were in the alternate bouts of these fights after semifinals, who knows who would be in the finals. So we need all the fighters we can get. But the replay they show of the elbow did not hit the back part of his head. It only hit part of his shoulder, and he just went down. So, more of a blow. But then they go to Jeff Blatnick interviewing the fighter. He interviews each fighter, so it's great to see him get back there. And we just get to it for the heck of it. And with a tough individual like the guy he was, it was great. Announces him, and with everything going on, he gets a little bit of an interview there, but there's not a lot of information I can say about his interview for the next 20 or so seconds. So he did a good job for what he did, and I got to give him credit. He did a good job in that fight. We cut to a guy named Leon Spinks, the former heavyweight champion that was outside of the ring. It's great to see. He's talking to someone there. And then we have a sign, a large paper blanket that says, "Where's Tyson?" ? So, yeah, it's kind of hilarious that someone outside has a big, large sign that says, "Where's Tyson?" which is kind of ridiculous. And then the sheet gets thrown away as the camera cuts to a bunch of crowded around the area. So, yeah, I can't say much about how people are looking for Tyson. I'm sure he's still in jail. He's still in jail. So we have Rudy Yard Monacchio versus Pat Smith. Or Patrick Smith. So Rudyard is outside in the desert again, throwing out punches from Ecuador. The little Latin heat is into the octagon tonight and goes for the fighters and families and friends. Found a whole country of pulling for me, and I'm here to note I don't want anyone to let me down. So please wish me luck, because I'm going to win this. He walks out with an awesome shirt called Powerhouse with a barbell. He's also living in California with a 78-0 record of full contact karate matches. Again, guys, we don't know if their information is true, if he was undefeated, so I can't give that information out because I don't know if it's true or not. They say he's probably a purple black belt in jiu-jitsu and other black belts. But they do show his discipline of prefers combination, weightlifter, very strong. He has knockout power, but does he have what it takes to take on a veteran fighter like Patrick Smith? Kempo fighter, who knows? And then we see our good old friend Pat Smith backing up, and he goes for an awesome cartwheel, lands, and then does a backflip, reverse cartwheel back. And with everything going on, awesome. Outside, he goes, I fought in UFC 1, I fought in UFC 2, I fought Chemo. The experience out everybody in this competition. It's my big chance to win UFC 6. I love that Patrick Smith is back again, ladies and gentlemen, but does he have what it takes? He might not be in the prime that he should have been a couple years ago, but You know what? It's better than it was in 1993, so let's see how good he does. He wears this weird white suit of an Olympic suit on he's wearing, so take that for what you will. Commentators point out he's had 2 losses in the octagon. He's known as a low leg kicker, headbutts, knees, elbows, and he looks for a knockout even as being a striker. And after all that, we announce on the fighters from here or there. Major on record from each fighters. And I do find it weird that Patrick Smith is wearing the ridiculous outfit. Like, he's 217 with 205 from Kempo, 25 years old for Manakeo, 31 years old for Patrick Smith. It does say that his discipline, as he is a kickboxer, but still. But at this time, he say he's actually now a Taekwondo. So we'll see how good that goes. But yeah, again, guys, nothing much was into this match as much as you thought. The match starts, where both study each other, and Patrick, guys, this was almost like a WWE wrestling move where Patrick charges in, he stops for a quarter of a second, and then charges in and just throws a left kick. And as he throws this left, like, it almost looked like he threw the big boot like a Hulk Hogan, because it hits the stomach belly of Rudyard, and Rudyard hits the ground like it was a WWE move. He lands out a quick leg kick. But surprisingly, Montejo gets back up quickly, and now he's getting headlocked by Pat. And I love that moment. Patrick comes over, stops for a quarter second, and then charges in again and just gives him a left big boot Hulk Hogan kick. And just, oh, God. That was the most wildest UFC moment to start off the first seconds in a UFC fight I've never seen before. And I hope we'll see it again one day in another UFC fight, because that was the most awesomest thing I've ever seen Patrick Smith done in his entire career of UFC. So at this moment, he's still getting headlock. He's throwing in the headlock on Rudyard, and Rudyard's trying to get to the corner. He tries to pull his face, gets a back part of the heads, and out of nowhere, just getting grabbed on. And Rudyard's trying to grab the part of the padding on the top of the 5-foot length fence. And also Patrick Smith does the same thing, where he puts his arm like this to the corner. And then, boom, he lets go and puts him down. He puts out a rear naked chokehold. At the 1 minute mark of the fight, he puts out a rear naked chokehold, throws a couple punches. Rudyard turns his back away from Patrick. Big mistake. The Rude is awakening here with big shots by Smith. And then Smith goes out for the wildest rear naked choke. Wraps him around, puts him down again. Oh, it was the most wildest. Guys, this had to be one of the most sickest submission moves I've ever seen in the entire show. But believe me, guys, another submission is going to get a lot crazier tonight after this. But that had to be one of the wildest finishes I've ever seen in a UFC fight, considering it was only 1 minute and 8 seconds long. The crowd's going crazy. Smith is on fire. At this moment, guys, I was like, Smith is going to win the finals. All right. Well, luckily, I already got that one over with. So, yes, guys. Patrick gets everything done. But unluckily, guys, when I said to myself that he will win the champion, as writing down my notes when reviewing the fight, on Wikipedia, it said that he did not continue to go to the semifinals because Patrick Smith had stomach cramps, so he was replaced by one of the 2 fighters in the alternate bout. By the way, as they're showing the interview, as he's being interviewed by Jeff Blatnick, which, it was indecent. It was okay. Nothing much of an interview there, just like Paul Varens. But he comes out, and then they show us a replay. I love that when Jeff Blatnick tells him about the kick he did in the beginning part of the fight, they show the replay of another angle, and they show the replay of the submission holds and the grab and this or that. Paul goes down, holding on to the chain link fence, and then goes down and then puts that the naked chokehold. They show a replay this time from a different angle, which shows Rudyard walking like he's like one of the Wyatt Earp brothers from Tombstone. He's walking towards Patrick Smith, and you see Patrick Smith leading off his left foot and charging straight after him and gives him that left kick that brings down Patrick Smith, which is still funny. And then they have a blonde woman next to 3 seat rows, away from Ron Van Queeth, the guy that's enjoying the fight, from the angle of the camera background that they're watching this fight, where the camera is seeing the guys in the background with the doctors and such. They have this blonde woman. She looks at it and she turns her face like this, and she's already like a foot away from one of those big, large computers at the time, from Windows 95 computers. And she's turning her head like this, like she does not want to see the beating that's going on from this guy getting beaten up by this Patrick Smith dude. And I'm like, why is this blonde woman even sitting there if she doesn't like violence? What's her point being there? She's covering her face up like this because she doesn't want to see the horrible beating. It was fun. But that was about it. They give an interview for Pat, but yet again, nothing much said to it. So the next 2 fighters from Canada and Russia bring out the competition. We see Dave Bento fighting a guy outside in the grass, and we see Oleg Taktarov trying to kick, stomp, and grab a cameraman as he's trying to hurt a cameraman. Dave Bento talks to everyone. He says thank you for the people that he's with in people from Quebec, Canada. Thanks to the university, and thanks to the entertainment and other people for giving him this chance to fight in UFC 6. Taktarov thanks everyone from Russia. He thanks his son. He wishes his son, Sergey, luck for him to watch his father fight, to make it to the finals to win. So, yeah, both guys walk out to the ring. And then, for some reason, they show out the match graphics of how old they are, this or that. And then, as they're done doing that, there's no Michael Buffer. So what do? They go down to see David Hasselhoff, where we should be having an interview with him in a little bit later, and on his big popular show of Baywatch, which is pretty awesome. I bet he's back in California because he wants to be back with Knight Rider. Who knows? So, yeah. So Jeff points out with everything that whoever's going to win this fight and they announce who's going to win the fight, this or that. And then Michael Buffer finally climbs into the ring, tells this, announces from Ontario, Canada, 258, 6'2", 28-year-old Benento, a guy that was lucked to be in the alternate bout to go to the finals last UFC. And then they show, and as he announces a Russian fighter, they show a woman with a bikini, this or that, and she walks by Michael Buffer, while Buffer announces 27-year-old, 6 foot, 215 pound, 1994 Iron Gladiator champion, 4-time European and Asian Jiu-Jitsu champion, Oleg Taktarov, and a Russian national judo champion in the world. And there's so much stuff, this or that. I can't even get to it. It's awesome. So I love that they put that over for the fighters. By the way, before he announces Dave Benito, we already have a woman ring card lady walking by, and it shows the cameraman backing up behind Michael Buffer because they want to catch the ring card girl wearing a black bikini, similar to Scoochon, because Scoochon, the VTuber, doesn't wear a thong. I wish he does. And then we go forward. John McCarthy calls out the fighters, and, well, the fight ends abysmally, where Dave Benito tries to grab the leg of Taktarov, and Taktarov doesn't want to go down. He throws some punches, but he finally goes down. He goes grab on, and then he gets the grab hold. Even though Bento puts him down, he's on top of the Russian bear, but yet again, that was not a good idea. They both put their heads against the chain link fences, and throwing some grabs here or there, and Dave doesn't want to let go while Taktarov is getting back on his feet. And then before you know it, he starts throwing punches. They let go, and he hurts on Taktarov, but for some reason, Taktarov goes out of nowhere, blocking out the punches as best he could, and then he grabs the leg of Dave Benito. He puts him down, and then he completes a perfect somersault cartwheel flip, flips back, and then he tries to go for the another grab, but then Dave pulls back and goes again on top of Taktarov again. And then Taktarov goes for a guillotine choke while on the grab, and sadly, he just couldn't hold on, and he taps out with a guillotine choke at 57 seconds, and John stops it. So I don't know how, guys, I don't know how Taktarov survived that groove. Guys, Oleg Taktarov as a Russian fighter, I don't know how the heck he survived that entirety of getting beaten up in the first 30 seconds of the fight, how he completed a full completed cartwheel. John raises the hand for the winner, and as he does, it shows Dave with his whole face left-sided, bleeding left eye. And then we get a little blood cut, cheek blood here from Taktarov, and I will say, though, it was really shocking to see how... Guys, I don't know how Oleg Taktarov survived that, but I'll be honest, guys, that had to be a great fight. And even though Tank Abbott was the knockout of the night in this entire show, the submission and fight of the night is just getting started. Because Jeff Blatnick comes out, what's your experience in your last UFC, and what have you learned? And Oleg Taktarov is pointing out everything with his friends, me, and he's done a lot of friends watching him in Russia and from Texas, from California, and his son going to watch, and I cannot lose anything, and we'll just hope for the best of luck. And as he's about to walk away, Jeff Blatnick cuts him off and just to let him show the replay of what happened, talking about how this all started and how the fight and how he decided to mix it up and with a punch, and he was able to take you down and still punching with so much stuff that he's expected. They're showing the replay and just so much, and they see the blood from the left part of Benitio's eye where he actually tries to put down Oleg, and Oleg Taktarov survives, goes for a cartwheel and grabs, and with a straight forward of everything else. Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't think there's much you can say about this. With 2 more fights and everything else, yeah. It was actually surprising for what we were seeing in this fight because, guys, the first 4 fights in this competition were 20 seconds, 1 minute, 2 seconds, 1 minute, 8 seconds, and 57 seconds. And to be honest, guys, the semifinals are going to be similar for how long the matches are going to be. And because, guys, the entire show was going to last a lot quicker. So they go us to the quarterfinals and show us the semifinals of Abbott versus Valerins in the semifinals. And we'll have Patrick Smith taking on the one and only Oleg Taktarov. But considering Pat Smith and everything else, we would actually get to that moment sooner or later about him being replaced by one of the fighters later in the show. So, yeah. So we get to the next fight, ladies and gentlemen, where we have the DL, Tank Abbott versus Paul Varens in their next fight on the show. And Tank Abbott is walking like $1 million right now with great armor, biceps. He's still an overweight dude, but yet again, I wouldn't really say that's much to say the least about him. But yeah, Paul Varens comes out with all black shirt, this or that. And of course, again, we get the same stuff. They show us the tail of the tape. Again, Varens is 25, 6'8", 300 pounds against 286 foot, 30-year-old Tank Abbott. And at that moment, that's all you need to know. Abbott's a wrestler. Varens is a wrestler. Both guys have done success, but now they're fighting in the semifinals. And as Varens is about to put his hand to be like Jack Johnson, Abbott does not hesitate to land a perfect right punch, and then he gets pulled to the fence by the 6-foot guy that's 8 inches shorter than him, and then he gets taken down by this short dude. So he decides to throw left elbows all over Tank Abbott. Tank Abbott's right leg is caught between the legs of getting wrapped around by Paul, and this guy is on top of him. And I will say, though, guys, consider this fight would go longer than any other fight in the quarterfinals, but not longer than the 2 fights in the alternate bout or any other fight after this. I will say, though, this had some interesting moments written all over it because both guys were all over each other. And Tank Abbott got the most of it. Pretty much. So, technically... They've been in the grappling for a while. Abbott's head is touching the fence. And around 1 minute of the fight, both of their heads are getting touched to the fence. We get a little bit of body rib punches from Abbott downstairs. And then they let go. He goes for some punches, counteracting while he's on top of this 6'8" dude. I'm shocked that Paul Behrens is not in the shape that he was when he took on Cal Wershman. He just didn't realize what Tank Abbott was. He was more dangerous than Cal. And Cal gets up, puts his left knee onto the head of Paul, and starts to put so much pressure on his knee to suffocate him, hurt him. And at this moment, Behrens' face is bloody and his nostrils, and Tank is using the fence as a weapon and kneeling everything to the head. And it was so wild. And I'm like, stop the fight, referee. We get to 1 minute 50 seconds of the fight, and he's throwing out left punches. And John finally lets go to grab him and stop the beating at 1 minute 53 seconds of the fight. And to be honest, guys, it looked like the fight was 1 minute long. We get a little bit of blood onto the bottom of the head of Tank Abbott, and then as that cuts, it cuts to Paul Behrens is effed up. I think he did a swear word where his bloody face is all over here above his nose. He's yelling, swearing, and cussing out, and with everything going on, and he's pointing out the judgment call where the referee felt it should be stopped. And with 1 minute 51 seconds of the fight, make it 53. And Tank Abbott's the winner. And with a little bit of a cut to his head at this moment, he'll be in okay shape. So pretty much, can't say much about that. He did good. And yet again, the commentators point out that he's an undefeated in bare knuckle matches and the streak continues. And guys, and at this moment, guys, I did forgot to, by the way, guys, did I actually wrote down any notes of who said that on commentary other than saying that Jeff Blatnick was interviewing the winners of the fight? Oh, crap, I forgot. So, guys, I do apologize. I don't know if who actually said that stuff about the undefeated record or so that. I don't know if Jim Brown said that or you know, the... what's his name? It's not Jeff Blatt. Bruce Beck. Is it Bruce Beck? Yeah, Bruce Beck. So, guys, I don't know who is in the announcers that are talking about this. I forgot to write their names down and said who said this and who said that. So I do apologize if Jim Brown said that or Bruce Beck said that. Like I said, guys, I wrote so many notes down already that I'm already trying to point out the information that I'm looking right now without not knowing who said what. Because like I said, this is the first time I've watched this entire episode. And after 5 UFCs when I was a kid around a decade ago, I really can't say much about it. And by the way, guys, they show the replay, and I actually realized that Tank Abbott is wearing shoes and Paul is barefooted. So take that for what you will when it comes to what UFC was back then. But yeah, they interview out Tank Abbott, and he said earlier in his little preview thing, he likes to take people down and tickle them, which is kind of weird for Tank Abbott to say that. after he tried to cut someone in a WCW show in 2000. He goes, I just wanted to tickle his brain a little and just a little bit. And and then they go for a little bit of commentary on the finish of the match, as they do, and then they stated that I'm starting to get sexually aroused. Better get that off. For why would you actually say that on TV? I don't know why. But pretty much, for some reason, that's kind of weird for someone to say that in his debut in his UFC. But yeah, who knows? But yeah, again, I really can't say much about that. But still, he wishes Tank Abbott the best of luck in the finals, and that's about it. So what about the semifinals, guys? Did the next fight in the semifinals get better? Who knows? Tank Abbott is getting the fan base. He's getting applaud to everyone, and that's about it. And then we get crowds from the people cheering this or that. Some fans are happy to be there. They're wearing UFC shirts, and some aren't just really excited to be there yet. So, yeah. Can't say much about that, am I right? But, yet again, guys, I would really say there is much ridiculousness. They talk to the crowd. We get a little bit of interesting confrontation here. With so much other stuff of hatred and the factor. And then we get reports that Patrick Smith is not going to compete in the semifinals. So it is really upsetting that we don't have Patrick Smith in the running here. And then we get a little bit of talk with Jim Brown and Bruce Beck talking about mostly of respect and football, this or that. So we get reports that Anthony Macias will be in the next bout due to Takhtarov from Sambo and world champion, that Macias will take over as a Muay Thai fighter boxing. He is going to take over for Patrick Smith and his stomach cramps in the semifinals. And if something bad happens for the injured fighters, which I'm sure Tank Abbott is okay, he's not hurt. If one of these guys get injured in their win in the semifinals, Joe Sutton will take over for taking on Tank Abbott in the finals. So wish him best of luck. Oleg Takhtarov enters in the fight as usual. And then we get a promo package of, again, Anthony Macias wearing American trunks. It didn't work out for John McLaughlin in the alternate bout, so it's not going to work out for him in American trunks. It's not going to work out for Anthony. He's running to a near town in the desert, which is similar to the guy that got beaten up by camera, and concentrating on his competition since his last UFC. He's got his head on straight. I'm a live wire. Just shut that gate and let me go. And that's all he had to say. So he wears out black hoodie, this or that, comes into the fight, enters the ring, and we get a little bit of a great talk here. The winner of the match will take on in the semifinals, will take on Tank Abbott in the finals, as Michael Buffer points that out. And then Oleg Takhtarov is the announcer of the fight. And then we announce the Muay Thai fighter and the fighter of Anthony Macias in the fight. So Anthony Macias is 26 years old, 5'10", 190 pounds from Denton, Texas, a Muay Thai fighter. And like I said, Takhtarov, 27, 210 pounds, 6 foot tall. Yeah. So Macias said that he's a live wire. And technically, when watching out his last fights he did, yeah, I don't know if that would be the truth, because ever since he did had moments in UFC 4 against Dan Severn, which he tried. Don't get me wrong, he was highlighted it, but sadly, this would be the last time that Macias would be in a UFC event. As for Oleg Takhtarov, on the other hand, he went on to pull out an interesting victory into his career, because at this moment, after his loss against Dan Severn in the semifinals due to a cut in the semifinals, and ever since then, the fight starts out easily. So Anthony Macias runs after Oleg Takhtarov because he thought if it worked for Patrick Smith, it's going to work for him. He chases him, And then before you know it, he runs forward right into him, and then he ducks his body. And as he does it, as he goes for it, Oleg Taktarov, seconds into the fight, grabs Macias, and like Anthony's knees are on the ground. He tries to get back up, and then Oleg grabs, lets go, puts his whole body on the ground, puts on a guillotine choke. He flips over, backward somersault of a cartwheel bow for Macias, and puts it on, going on top of Macias, puts on the guillotine choke, and at 9 seconds, Anthony taps out. And that's the end of the fight. Yeah, so, Sutton, if you're watching this, good job winning your fight in the alternate bout, but it wasn't good enough. And before you know it, that was a record. Taktarov took out 9 seconds in the fight and probably broke the record for the quickest win ever. And the crowd is shocked. Everyone else is just so out of it. And at this moment, like, no one expected that to end quickly. I don't think none of us expected that fight to end as quickly as they thought. It was ridiculous, but at the end of the day, I really couldn't say much about it. Mad Dog comes in, he recovers. They show the replay of Macias running in, trying to stop, go under, grab his leg, failed, and then he does a cartwheel while being grabbed in the guillotine by Oleg. Oleg is on top of him, and Anthony taps out quickly before you know it. They said it only took 21 seconds, which, yeah, kind of weird. And then they interview the winner for the fight. It was a great bout there. He took a shot on your legs. The wrestler double leg. You overhooked the head. What did you do from there? And the guys, I have experience for 15 years. Maybe this guy is a good kickboxer, but he's too small for a grappler. I feel very bad that I couldn't fight with past mid. It was my dream. I wanted to make him leg choke. And, well, I took leg locks and a knee in the block and with ankle locks because I know nobody in America knows that stuff. And then before he was about to leave, Jeff grabs him again and says, well, what's your 2 on your 2 with the chokes? And then Tank Abbott, can we look for you and put the choke on Abbott tonight? At this moment, like, guys, Oleg Taktarov doesn't care about getting interviewed. He just cares about warming up for his last fight. It's great. So he goes, well, it's just in case guys shoot me first. I have no chance to just choke. Yeah, just go for a choke slam. Wish you best of luck, Oleg. Thanks. And that's it. And then they cut the camera for Anthony, just like he's done for. His career is over for UFC. He's done. And given as everyone else, Guy Mesger and his friend Andy, and don't get me wrong, guys, he was a guy that was quick on the pace, but at the end of the day, guys, I really did feel bad that had to end like that because he didn't deserve that. But that's what you get if you make that huge mistake. Yeah. So we go to the semifinal rounds, and it shows Abbott and Taktarov in the final rounds. Both of them are clean. They went through fully. And then we have a who would win super fight, which says 56% of fans say Dan Severn will win. 39% fans show will Shamrock win, and 6% a draw. That is the UFC 6 Super Fight Internet Survey. And like I said before, guys, this is 1995, so this is when Windows 95 was a new thing. So I guess there weren't a lot of people that were voting back then because internet was still new at the time. So that's another interesting thing we should understand about that back in 1995. And then we have the finals for the Super Fight Champion. So as Tank Abbott and Taktarov are actually taking it easy because they're going to take a break and just wait for the super fight. The super fight champion is the second last match, as the finals will be Oleg and Abbott. So yeah, let's get to the super fight champion. So we have Ken Shamrock with these big muscles. He's next to a building, which might be Casper. He's putting out his arms like this. He has big, large biceps, and he's, well, back in the building where other people have been interviewed for their promo packages. And he can't wait to tame the beast. And that's all he has to say. So that's, well, he has more to say, but yeah, I can't say much about it. He wears a purple robe. And with everything going on, it's surprising because Ken Shamrock's shoe fighting is that he's grappler, he may throw punches, he is an arm and leg locker, and he is the master of submissions. Dan the Beast Severn, on the other hand, is different. So Dan the Beast Severn gets this great, good promo package of him. So they cut to the Beast a little bit where he's wearing green trunks and he's also fighting someone else in the desert as we're speaking. He picks up the guy and then instead of slamming him, he just lets the guy let him go back on his feet for some reason. And then they just hug it out, wrestle, go left and right. And it's so ridiculous. And then they show the Ultimate Fighting belt that he's wearing. And he's carrying a rock over his head and looks down the camera. It's great. And he even has some world titles on his belt at the time. So, yeah, great. He's at this time, he was already an NWA champion. So this might have gotten big for NWA at the time when NWA wrestling wasn't that big as it was. So it was great to see them put that on the line at the time. So they go for a championship belt here. They say that he's the champion, but who knows? From Michigan, this guy, 1994 National AAU Greco-Roman champion, 94 AAOU outstanding wrestler, softball champion, and senior division. And yeah, just can't say much about that. He's a 70-plus titles. And at this moment, I wouldn't call him a legend yet, but this moment would make him a legend when he was in UFC. So Dan Severn's wrestling career is that he's a grappler. He shoots immediately. He's a heavy striker, and he's limited on submission skill. So he's not a puncher. Keep that in mind. So we get to it. Michael Buffer announces on the fighters. And by the way, I thought we were going to get an interview with David Hasselhoff. Why did we not get that yet? I don't know why. So, guys, Shamrock is 31 years old. Severn's 37. And their weight differentials are different, just like their heights. But I can't say much about that. So technically it's a 30-minute fight, 5-minute overtime for 35 minutes, and they go back to a circle. They don't expect it to go that long. This might be an interesting, close, dangerous fight. One guy makes a mistake, and that's about it. So both guys study each other, and this is actually the first time in the first 5 or 10 seconds of a fight that both Shamrock and Severn are both standing there still waiting for the move, because the first fights in the quarterfinals and semifinals is a fighter attacking the fighter, whether it's successful or not. So, because every time the first fights in the quarterfinals and semifinals happens, the fight just happens without both guys studying each other. So that's ridiculous. So I love that they both study each other until Shamrock attacks the legs, goes for the grab, and then they both get back up quickly. And out of nowhere, Shamrock gets pummeled to the back of the cage, turns around, they're both grabbing each other. These guys are ready to finish each other on, throw everything at each other. They go for grabs and like whatever you like to say, it's there. So Shamrock and Severn are both holding each other in the first minute. They're just standing up, grabbing holds, just waiting for the first mistake for both of each other. And then as we get it, both guys are wearing shoes as we speak. So Shamrock throws a kick while wearing shoes, and they both let go of each other. They look at each other for a few seconds, and then they continue to go back to when they started in the first fight. We get a couple slaps from Severn, a couple jabs, but yet again, there's no grabs or holds or punches. Like at this moment, it seemed like Shamrock was a more legit fighter because he was throwing punches, and Dan Severn is not a boxer. If you know about him not being a puncher in the WWF match in Brawl for All against the Godfather 3 years later. So you can tell that Shamrock might have had a chance to win this as long as he gets lucky. And man, oh man, this fight ended quickly than you thought. He comes out, they both grab each other, but then Severn goes onto his knees trying to grab for the leg, and Shamrock goes for the grab, push, and then he tries to go for a guillotine choke, and as he does, goes to the ground, and then lets go, grabs, and then they go slam each other, and then they both get back up in time, and then both grab each other again, and then the fight comes to an end at 2 minutes and 14 seconds of the match, where the match ends with Shamrock getting his butt taken to the fence by Severn trying to go for the legs. And as both of their feet are still on the ground for a moment, and as you know it, Dan Severn is trying to get back up, but the guillotine choke by Shamrock, he's trying to get back up, and Ken Shamrock puts on a heavy, heavy guillotine choke while both guys are standing up, and then he slams they go to the ground on the butt, and before you know it, Dan Severn taps out, and John McCarthy taps. The crowd is going ridiculous, and Severn comes in, congratulates the winner, but I don't think fans expected Dan Severn to win that, to not lose that fight, because even though he was 55% favored to win, so this might be the first ever underdog victory of someone to ever say that was a fight. Both guys whisper at each other, with Dan wishing him best of luck for congratulating the win there, and that's it. And then I think Ken Shamrock's wife was there, and they go forward for some reason. I don't know. But yeah, that's how it ended. They just whispered to each other, wish best of luck, and the commentators are surprised that they did not expect that, and with the upper body strength showing. And by the way, as they showed the replay of the end of the match, it shows Dan Severn throwing a right uppercut to the groin on punching Ken Shamrock to the groin. Just a split second as Shamrock pushes Severn with his legs and his butt now sitting with the guillotine choke as he taps out for the win, which is kind of ridiculous. So, yeah, technically, it goes to show you that. That's crazy. So they gave the belt to the winner of the fight, even though Severn had the belt, but not the winner, I guess. I guess he was the tournament winner in UFC 5, which is why, but they never counted him as a champion there. So they congratulate the winner by Jeff Blatnick, congratulating the winner with Shamrock. The super fight of Ken, you tamed the beast. You sure did. I sure did. You know, there was a lot of speculation about my techniques and that I couldn't wrestle with him on the ground. And if he took me to the ground, he'd win. And he's a Greco-Roman. He couldn't take me down. He can't throw. I proved my ability. I can do submissions, and I can wrestle. And Jeff Blatnick replies, well, there was no doubt you seemed to come up there and not mind tying up with a wrestler. You said people don't respect my grappling ability. It seemed you were quite content and to stay in a locked position and make him spend energy. So, of course, Shamrock goes, well, I wanted to see what he could do to throw me. If he threw me, then I'd go from there. I want to test his ability. I want to see what he had. I found out he's strong. He's got good balance. But, I was able to hold him off. And then Jeff goes, oh, was there any special way you prepared for Severn? Yeah, I've got my big friend Scott. Scott who? Scott Hall? Who's one of my dojos. It's about 260, 270. I believe he's an alter in the next fight in the event. So I got to lay on top of me. And the crowd, me up against the fence. So I had a lot to grab a leg. So I knew I was going to do that. And then he goes to the middle ring and energy and trying to go to drive into the fence. And so Severn, mostly Shamrock takes a lot of talk. And, well, you see him apply the choke for the first time, and he was able to get out of it barely. Well, I don't know how I sunk it real deep, that when I was going for the Adam's apple, trying to put on a bone, and Adam's apple make him tap out quick. I missed the Adam's apple second time. I just sunk it in and choked him. And there's a surprise shot there, just went between the legs. No, he's done there before. Every time he puts somebody in the fence, he reaches up the head and reaches down for the leg. So I had to clear my head. Then go for his head. So he goes for who's next and enjoy the victory, this or that, and that's about it. So you're in a respect as a wrestler, and I appreciate, because there's a lot of people that doubted me against Severn, but the grappler I stayed in guard with Gracie. So no, when I could do with the Gracie's techniques, he keep and has those techniques and the guards, and Gracie good at doing that, and I could do a lot of stuff, and that's about it. And then he holds his wife and congratulates. So it is. She's my toughest opponent, and telling him that, and that's about it. They show the replay and this or that and other stuff with who he was talking, this or that. And then we have Ron Van Queef that was also in the ring, in the octagon, shaking out Dan Severn's hand and everyone hugging him, congratulating him. But at this moment, there's nothing much. The rest of everything else in that was just, it was a long interview, so I wouldn't really say too much about it. I said enough already, but it was great for Dan to pull out a good run there, but I did not expect Dan Severn to lose a fight that quick at 2 minutes. So, which goes to show you what the final fight was going to be. Because the final match would be the wildest. Because, guys, even though this would be fight, guys, even though Dan Severn was a submission of the night in this fight that night, the fight of the night was the last fight. We had the one and only... We have Oleg Taktarov versus Tank Abbott. Tank Abbott enters the ring, and with everything else, they talk about how the last opponent was upset and set free. And again, we show this or that about Tank Abbott and what his strategy is, this or that. He's a stand-up fighter, headhunter, boxer, wrestler, striker, blah, blah, blah. And, of course, just like Oleg Taktarov, he's a grappler, cautious approach, most aggressive on ground, submission choke, leg lock. So these are two different guys that are going to make a crazy fight. One of them is going to be successful, and the other is going to have a dead career in UFC by losing fights and maybe winning good fights, but not a lot into it. Because one fighter is going to have his career end before you know it. So we finally get to competition, guys. From Casper, Wyoming, are you ready? The crowd cheers. There's only one thing left to say. Let's get ready for the ultimate Rumble. Introducing first. The first pit fight to compete in the octagon. He's 30 years old, 6 foot tall. He weighs in at 268 pounds. Fighting out of Huntington Beach, California. Ladies and gentlemen, here is the man known as the Tank. He is David Hayes. Abbott. And his opponent, across in the octagon, from Lockford, California, by the Gorky, Russia. 27 years old, 6 feet tall, 215 pounds, a multiple world martial arts title holder from all over the world. He is the Russian Bear. He is... People are applauding, by the way, as this happens. Howard Taktov! And then I think Jim Brown, the announcer, says, only Michael Buffer calls it the Ultimate Rumble, which is pretty awesome. And Taktov and Abbott in UFC 6 with the belt on the line for their number 1 ranked. For Tank second and Taktov, the weight goes on for Tank and this or that. So technically that's all we have to know. So guys, this fight, I don't think a lot of fans expected this fight to go that long, but consider this was the main event of the match with a lot of fights going by the distance. I was surprised that this fight went on quickly. So Taktov takes his time, he goes forward quickly, but then Tank Abbott attacks and then puts him down the ground, but then he gets back up. He tells Taktov to get back up, and I'm surprised that Tank gave him a chance to get back up. They go to a fence, Tank tries to grab him, slam him, he throws punches, he takes on Taktov, putting him through cage to cage, and this is already the first minute of the fight, by the way, which is kind of crazy. The first minute went by so wild. And then they finally get some punches landed, and surprisingly, they go down, and Taktov goes down to a knee, but gets back up. And at this moment, this is the moment where the fight gets crazy, because Tank Abbott's right hand is grabbing the shorts of Taktov's shorts for a moment. And then they both grab each other. Both guys are bleeding at the moment at this time. And then around the 3-minute mark or so, we finally get Taktov getting his back on the cage and boom, grabs and goes for a choke. And this is when the moment when the fight should have ended. But with 2 minutes in the fight, we get a little bit of blood onto the side of Tank's eye. And Tank would be on top of him for a good amount of time. And he gets some punches landed here and there. We get a little bit of blood from Oleg's side here where he has a little bit of blood, but yeah, both of these guys would actually put on a dangerous show. In the first 3 minutes would be the moment where the next moments of the fight would get a little bit less interesting. Now, the commentators already had talked about the new rules of Abbott cheating and this or that, and how the back and they're trying to headbutt, there's no leverage. And guys, I wish I could talk about the commentators talking about what their thoughts about the match are. But what I'm seeing here is different, even though they have their own opinions, and even though Taktov doesn't have shoes on and Tank does. Because at this moment, for the next several minutes, it's just Abbott on top of Taktov with his head on Taktov's stomach and both and trying to grab the arms. Because for the next minutes of the fight just got a little bit boring. And there are times that Abbott tried to go for a punch here or there and then gets grabbed again. And yeah, at this moment, like, guys, if there were judges in this fight, I would say that there was a moment that maybe Abbott was going to win the fight. So with letting him stay on him for a while, at 5 minutes and 32 seconds of the fight, Abbott does finally try to let go and then finally gets on top of Taktov easily and goes for his head-to-head. But then he gets his head back into Taktov's stomach again and just rubbing him with his head. So at this moment, with everything going on and punches to the back with Tank's head and everything else, they finally let go and they finally almost do a little bit of a 69 on each other and almost goes for a face hit. And then Tank finally gets off of Taktov, gets back up and just lets Taktov get back up without attacking him, just giving him time to recover. And then they finally go for the attack again and the crowd are standing up. They're going for a off front headlock at the moment with no choke and showing off the blood and just everything else, because at this moment, I don't think fans expected this fight to go as long as they thought. We see blood into the eye of Taktarov where he's back in the fence again. And at this moment, both of these guys are fighting for a #1 contender shot. But at this moment, you might think to themselves that these guys are going to end their careers. And it surprises me because at 7 minutes and 30 seconds, Taktarov finally goes back down to the ground again, and Abbott is on top of him again. This fight was a lot different than than Royce Gracie versus Dan Severn fight in UFC 4, but considering what I was seeing was a surprising moment that both of the guys were getting their shots in. Like, Tank Abbott gave Oleg Taktarov a couple chances of him getting back up without going for the attack for some reason, because it seemed like Tank Abbott was so exhausted, and he just gave him time to catch his breath for Oleg trying to get back up so he can recover. And now I hear a friggin' insect that's now in my room right now, so that's kind of scaring me a little bit there, so I better get this finished. And then with only 9.5 minutes into the fight, with everything going on, both guys are tired, and Abbott's first legit real competition is the finals. And they're already showing signs of fatigue, but even though both guys have full energy because they've barely fought multiple minutes in after 2 fights, I hope you guys are hearing that. And then at the 10-minute mark, with everything going on, like I said, Abbott is winning the round if there were judges judging this fight. But yet again, I wouldn't really say much about it, because at this moment, with everything going on, both guys are bleeding hard, and with 11 minutes into the fight, and guys, if I had to say that the crowd were booing about this fight, thinking that the fight should end, because at this moment, Abbott is tired, he's exhausted, but he's on top of Taktarov. And then at 11 minutes and 40 seconds of the fight, he finally tries to get back up and throw some punches to hit Taktarov at the moment. And then they go back on top of each other again. I will say, though, guys, this match, I wouldn't say it was boring, but considering how all the other matches on the show went by from 3 minutes to 9 seconds of every fight, including the championship fight, I think it was good for this match to go probably 15 minutes or so, even if people thought it was boring. But yet again, it was already the final match, so it didn't really matter. We needed to get a performance on. This show was barely 2 hours long, and that's how crazy it was. So Taktarov keeps his eyes closed at the moment where the commentators point that out in 13 minutes of the fight. And everything else is just crazy. They're at 13 plus minutes, and they're almost halfway through the 30-minute mark. So what else can you say? Pretty much. And McCarthy just tells both fighters to just get up or do this, or because, guys, John McCarthy is trying his best to get the fight going, because now they're thinking they're going to restart the fight if they go to 30 minutes. And as we go to the 15-minute mark of the fight, where the fatigue of factor is going to play, because both guys are tired, but yet again, which one has enough energy to go for the win? Because, guys, Abbott is a KO winner, while Oleg Taktarov, he's gone for a guillotine submission and a guillotine choke. And Abbott is a puncher, knockout, and a killer. So anyone can win this fight. Because, guys, Tank Abbott isn't going for a knockout. And he's in a dangerous situation where if Taktarov goes for a guillotine choke and if Abbott makes that big mistake, it's over for him, because he's in a more scary situation than anyone else is. And guess what happens? Because as you know it, both guys finally get tired around the 16-minute mark of the fight. Because this is when the moment comes. as both guys are just breathing to each other, not doing much stuff, John McCarthy pulls Tank Abbott off of Taktarov, breaking up the fighters. And this is the moment when we realize that the rule is you can reset the fighters, because at this moment they're both very windy, is what the commentators said. So they restart the match, looks better. And as John McCarthy brings both fighters to their corners, he restarts the fight. And this is the moment when the fight ends. So Abbott finally throws some punches, trying to go for a grab. And then again, he shoves his body to the fence. I'm sure some fans are about to leave right now. But as they prevent body shots for knees, goes for the grab. Taktarov tries to grab for the leg, gets back up, and now he goes for a guillotine choke while standing up in a similar formation on how Ken Shamrock defeated Dan Severn. Similar. The fight ends where he's standing on top, and Dan Severn is trying his best to get off. His head is in the lock position on the guillotine choke I meant a rear naked choke. This was a rear naked chokehold he was putting on him. And then as he's stuck on the back of the fence, Taktarov finally escapes the fence, puts his full body landing on his back, finally gets the grab on for a rear naked choke on Tank Abbott. Or so we thought. As they let go, they both grab each other, and then he turns around as Tank Abbott is finally getting tired. He's putting his body like this, just shoving it like this, and Taktarov turns around, and now he's spooning him, and then he goes for the rear naked choke. Well, he was going for a guillotine choke, but then he goes for a guillotine choke, grabs onto him, and at the 17-minute and 47-second mark, grabs him and taps out for the win. Oleg Taktarov and both Abbott are laying down the ground, so tired, and John McCarthy's looking at both of them, and Taktarov tries to get back up, but John McCarthy tells him to stay down. Both guys are tired at this moment, and they should be, because the show's over at this moment, and Taktarov just pulled out an unbelievable victory, and what a great debut for Tank Abbott. Just too bad this would be the moment where Tank Abbott's career might have not been there anymore. With so much of their oxygen, they're both exhausted, and I'm sure they don't expect an interview from Jeff Blacknick at this moment, because who wants to be interviewed right now after this? But surprisingly, Tank Abbott gets back up first and pushes the cage door. Maybe he didn't know the door was open because he was almost about to fall off, but someone helps him, and he leaves the ring in his own body without help. But Oleg Taktarov is still on the ground, badly hurt, and he was in the worst moment of his career, and I'm surprised. Guys, I will say though, I will give this match an 8 out of 10. It wasn't an entertaining match as much, but Tank Abbott deserved that fight. He did good. If he should have won the fight, he would have gotten lucky in the fight by a punch. He's being congratulated by the crowd for a good effort in the fight. He did good. And at this moment, guys, Tank Abbott deserved the respect there. And he got to be in the finisher, the techniques. And even though Taktarov lost in UFC 5 and comes back in UFC 6, I was surprised that Tank Abbott got back from his full strength. So they give him an vicinity bag or something, or an oxygen bag for having Taktarov to breathe in and breathe out. And the altitude is over 5,000 feet is what they said, or something, in the venue or so. Were they in a mountain or something? I don't know. I got to look that up if Wyoming's event center is in a height of feet, because that'd be crazy. So, yeah, he's still on the ground breathing, and he's a tired man. And at this moment, what else can you say? So they show a little bit of replay to them stopping the fight for giving a restart. And then they show the finish of the match. And then Jeff Blacknick and everything else, well, not much. And then they show the time of 17 minutes and 47 seconds, which is actually accurate on Wikipedia. So good job for them. Oleg Taktarov is the winner of the fight, and that's all you have to know about this. They showed the winner with a time of 17 minutes and 47 seconds of this match. The winner by submission, as Ron Van Cleef is holding on to the belt again, or a different belt, by way of submission. And now the winner of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, number 6, the Russian Bear, Oleg Taktarov. And by the way, guys, as they give the belt to Taktarov, now I'm wondering, he did not receive a check or a $50,000 check to the winner, which made me realize that after UFC 5, there were no money given to the winner of the fight. Or maybe there was, because he was the tournament champion. And then as they go to the end of it, both Jeff Blatnick and Bruce Beck and Jim Brown are sitting on the commentary bench. Oleg Taktarov is in a tough fight of his life with his shoulders around two people. And Ron Van Cleef giving the title win to the winner again for a number 1 winner. And considering that Oleg Taktarov at this moment did not want to be interviewed, so Jeff Blatnick goes back to the seating area to talk to Bruce and Jim Brown at the end. And yeah, they go after it, and that is it for Casper, Wyoming. Bruce Beck ends the show with Jim Brown, Jeff Blatnick, and I'm Michael Buffer. I'm Bruce Beck. Thanks for joining us, and so long, everybody. Good night, everybody, and good night. And then they show the film, and that's how the show ends. So, and I think, to be honest, guys, Oleg Taktarov didn't really care about being interviewed, so I think it was a good thing because he was already tired, so... But guys, I will say though, guys, UFC 6 was not a bad show. There were a lot of moments where the fights ended in quick successions, moments where a 6'8" tall dude brought out an amazing moment, and how a Russian fighter was getting beaten up so much by some people, but he recovered in the first fight and then got attacked by Anthony Macias only in 9 seconds of the fight just to win the fight and come back from this. Guys, Oleg Taktarov, this was definitely the fight of the night. And Tank Abbott and Ken Shamrock both put their performances that night in the show. Yes, Dan Severn didn't go out there as much as he should have, but at the end of the day, it was a good show for what it was, and technically it was great. So anyway, guys, thank you for watching this. I think, guys, in my last opinion... I will say this, though, guys. Considering, guys, that UFC 7 is going to take place on September the 8th in 1995 in Buffalo, New York, in the Memorial Auditorium. Guys, UFC 7, known as The Brawl in Buffalo, I'm going to record that episode in a podcast next month, as maybe it's 99th episode or maybe episode 100. So my 99th episode, ladies and gentlemen, will have to be live probably at the time as I review other stuff, because guys, I'm already preparing on doing the Undisputed Champion, the Road to Undisputed Championship in another weight class in the end of August. And there's not a lot of title fights going on in this month of August. There's not a lot of excitement going on this month for world title fights in boxing right now this month of August. So it was a good time for me to talk about this show, even though considering right now it's already Monday the 11th as I'm making this. So take that for what you will. And it's already my 4th podcast this month right now. And I'm doing another one in probably Thursday or Friday, the 14th or 15th as I'm making this. So, and then of course, guys, after the 18th and 21st or 22nd, when I do 6 or 7 podcasts after 3 weeks this month, depending if there's any entertainment or stuff to talk about, just like when I talked about Harold Howard and his last MMA fight, which there will be another one, but I'm not going to get to it. I will do a 5-part podcast on the 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th, and 29th, talking about the WBA, WBO, IBF, and the WBC, and the Lineal Ringweight Magazine Championship. Well, maybe not the Ring Magazine, but not the IBO or other titles, but the lineal weight title. I will talk about each part episodes, just like I talked about the women's heavyweight, the women's light heavyweight, and the undisputed heavyweight. I did talk about in May last year in 2024. So, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. It's going to be a surprise. So we're going to see what happens after this month is over. And even though I've recorded this podcast for now 2 hours now as I'm recording this, so we're going to see what happens when time goes on right now, because I have a lot of other episodes of doing Shotgun Saturday Night right now, which is also another thing I'm going to do. So as this month of August, I have a lot of other episodes to record and a lot of gigabytes I have to put into my laptop, as long as I don't fill it up too much while deleting some videos that I've already done, as long as my channel doesn't get deleted. We're going to see what happens when time goes on after that. So I am thinking about making 10 to 12 episodes of Mr. GLOAT podcast, which as it's after 86 episodes in the end of July. So I think I'm going to do 98 episodes by the end of this year. And maybe in September, I am going to do one episode of reviewing Canelo Alvarez versus Terrence Crawford, and then the Naoya Inoue and his Madrimov fight in September the 13th and September the 14th, and those two shows. And then maybe my 99th or 100th episode, I might release it maybe next month. And guys, after I only do 2 episodes in September, I'm just going to take a long hiatus, just record some videos and record out and release my other season 5 of Supernatural Trails, which will come out in the month of October. And even though I have a couple more episodes of Supernatural Trails season 4 that's going to come out on August the 9th, and the season finale will be in August the 16th. So I will get the other episodes on October the 3rd, which will be 1 week before the last My Little Pony videos I'm going to upload, and then go for 5 or so episodes there and end it on 21st of November for season 5. And then maybe in January or so, we're going to see what I'm going to do. But I am going to have another podcast for Mr. GLOAT podcast, which will be another YouTube channel. So I'm going to take a long hiatus, but I won't announce it when I'll do it. But I think it's probably for the best for me to take a hiatus from doing this stuff to catch my breath, because my throat is hurting right now, but I just can't stop talking about this stuff. So we'll see what happens after the entire year is over, and we'll see what happens. So I have a lot of work to be done with, and with Hunger Game video, because guys, at this moment, guys, I think by 2026, when this year is over, I'm only going to do Hunger Games videos and Shotgun Saturday Night, and a few more seasons of Supernatural Trails. I'm thinking about doing 10 seasons of it by 2027 to make it series finale, but I'm not going to tell you guys when I'll release season 7. I've already announced season 5 and season 6 will come out in January, but we'll see what happens when that time comes. But for now, guys, thank you, viewers, for watching this episode of UFC 6. And with that being said, see you guys in the next video. So goodbye, everyone, and see what happens. Peace.